Ladies and gentlemen, I figured today, after just finishing up a fun new project on this here boat, that maybe I'd actually take the time to show you what this boat's all about, how I've set it up and modified it for best use around here in the Midwest, and just tell you a little bit about what I've affectionately referred to as the Ditch Pickle. The Ditch Pickle is a 2019 Grizzly Tracker 1648SC side console boat, all welded aluminum. Purchased brand spanking new with a 50 horse Mercury 4-stroke on the back there. Brand spanking new from my local Bass Pro. I decided to go with the side console because frankly it seemed like a good idea at the time, and I've never owned a boat before. And a lot of my friends had side console boats, so I went with it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about some of the modifications I've made to this boat to make it a little more fishable, some of the projects that I've already done, and some of the additional projects that I plan to do in the future. So, I figured the easiest way to do this video is going to be to start at the front. Any fishing boat would be woefully incomplete without a trolling motor. The trolling motor of choice for this here boat is going to be a Minn Kota Ultrex. I went with the, I think it's the 54-inch shaft, 80-pound thrust. 80-pound was probably a little overkill for this boat in theory, but in practice, fishing the heavy current of the Iowa River, for example, it's been really nice to have that extra power. Now, to be fair, the shaft may have been a little overkill. I probably should have gone with the shorter shaft, and if I could do it again, I would have gone with the Ultrex with the universal sonar, and not the Ultrex with integrated mega imaging. Why? Because when I first bought this boat, I thought I was going to do all Humminbirds. Yep, certainly went all Humminbird on this unit. So right in the front of the boat, next to our Ultrex, you see a Garmin Echo Map 93SV, freshly installed by yours truly, and networked into the unit in the back, which we'll get to. So right off the bat, that piece of hardware, that one right there, is basically useless to me. There's no way, to the best of my knowledge, to make the Humminbird-equipped mega imaging Minn Kota play nice with the Garmin Echo Map. So, all in due time, that may get corrected. But for now, I'm stuck with it. It's a useless feature. Paid too much. Kind of a bummer. Obviously, with an 80-pound thrust trolling motor, I'm going to need a second battery. So in this battery compartment, if I can climb up here without hurting myself, in this compartment here, we've got a second battery installed. 1, 2, and then I've got my first aid kit packed away in there. Life vest, throwable life preserver, everything fused appropriately. I had to upgrade the wiring for the trolling motor. This came with, I think it came with 10 gauge, so I had to upgrade it to 8 gauge for the extra current draw from the Minn Kota Ultrex. So right off the bat, a lot of work just to make this trolling motor play nice. It's also mounted directly to the keel, no quick disconnect or anything like that, because how it's bolted to the front, you can't actually undo those fasteners. There's lock nuts on the bottom. So even if you got those screws a little loose, you'd never be able to undo it without cutting through a bunch of rivets, drilling, and hacking this whole thing apart. So I feel like it's fairly secure. The next upgrade, working our way back, is the old DZ locking toolbox from my F-150 project. Turns out the 48-inch toolbox fits perfectly and makes a nice big chunk of tackle storage right up front. And it's waterproof, so even if this thing gets rained on sideways, all my tackle is nice and stored. This is a pretty easy thing to install. A couple of bolts in the bottom, drilled straight through into the all-alu minimum deck, and then some rib nuts to permanently attach it. Fairly straightforward, super strong enough to stand on, it's not going anywhere. The second modification that I've made to this boat, as far as storage, is this, not a live well, edition live well. I plugged the bottom port of the live well with the included port, and then using an extra boat plug, I plugged the top port so water can't leak in, close that, and I use this for storage as well. This is mainly boat tools, extra plastics, towel should I fall in, and extra rod holder for now. So, the one downside to this Tracker 1648SC, the live well's not very big. If you caught maybe a couple of walleye or a couple of panfish, but really the size of this well lends itself more to a bait well than it does a true live well. There's really not a lot of real estate in there for keeping fish for any period of time. It's not insulated in any way, shape, or form. The thin aluminum lid, well, it's not thin, it's actually fairly solid, very easy to stand on, but the aluminum lid doesn't provide any insulation, so I don't know. I've only used it as a live well once with fairly good success, but it doesn't have any auto-regulating filling. Like I said, I consider it more of a bait well. One other little modification that you'll see to the console is a little Stingray line cutter that I bolted directly to the front of the console, which I did get the accessory windshield, which, yeah, mixed feelings on it. I got it, I spent the money, it seemed like a good idea, and it works more or less as advertised, but I don't know. We'll get to a couple of future modifications and we'll talk about it then. One thing I did do with a little bit of bent aluminum, I used this Rapala Rod Holder so that I at least have, 6 rods worth of onboard rod storage. The inside walls of this boat do not accommodate any length of one-piece rods, so we had to do vertical rod storage instead. So at least I have 6 rods that I can bring with me. I just kind of have to be mindful of. Here you'll see my Ranger landing net, which I attached with a pair of quick fists that are just attached via self-tapping screws. And you'll also see the ever-important cup holder. Got a little fold-down cup holder right there. Probably going to add 1 or 2 more cup holders on the boat. We're going to use the ram mount style, I think, into these accessory T-tracks. Speaking of accessory T-tracks, right here, you'll see the rod holder that I liberated off my kayak. It'll still work on the kayak, but it also works well on those T-track mounts. And so I've got an extra rod holder there if I were trolling or just had a dead stick in the water. So I've got that going. Here at the back console, not too many modifications with the exception of a Garmin Echo Map 73SV. For a graph in the back of the boat. I actually purchased this one at the time of purchasing the boat, and I really fell in love with the Garmin. I figured I'd have a hummingbird up at the front. That didn't really pan out. And a Garmin in the back if I ever wanted to get live scope, or I just eventually go all hummingbird and use the Garmin just for live scope, but I've since decided to go 100% Garmin. I like the tech, I like the interface, I like them an awful lot, and right now I really just don't see any reason to get out of the Garmin business. They also seem to consistently go on sale and are a little more affordable for what it's worth. So that Minn Kota Ultrex might get upgraded to maybe a Garmin trolling motor, maybe a different Ultrex, one with the US2 and the shorter shaft, but we'll see. So anyway, got that back here. One of the other points of modification, if you're watching any of the recent videos, let's see if we can get a little illumination under there. There's the networking box for my Garmin unit. So all the wiring, the networks, and power cables all route there. That way the Garmin in the front can talk to the Garmin in the back, use the same transducer, and I can stop bugging whoever else is fishing out of the back of the boat to tell me what's going on the sonar. One of the other big modifications, when this boat was originally purchased, this area here was just open. There was nothing sealing it in. So what I did is I used a long piano hinge, some steel that I had laying around the shop, and some wood that I purchased from a local hardware store to build a more complete casting deck. So instead of just having this bench, we've got this entire area. This is super over-engineered and plenty sturdy. Gives you a nice, large, stable casting deck. And when I need to get under there to refuel or anything like that, the piano hinge allows it to easily fold back and reveal the battery, an old kayak anchor that I still occasionally use whenever I need to beach the boat as a little extra security, and the included 6-gallon gas tank. There's still probably enough real estate here to fit a small gas tank, which I'll probably add, just like a little backup, quick fill kind of deal, and, just in case. And then last but not least, you'll see the fuse block, the old accessory fuse block. I've already got 4 of the 6 channels on this Blue Sea fuse block used up. 3 for the 2 graphs and the networking unit, 1 for the GPS puck for the Ultrex. But it'd be very easy to upgrade, and I don't know how many more accessories I'm really gonna add, except maybe down the road, maybe Garmin Live Scope. We'll see. It seems like kind of a fun, overpriced piece of equipment to put on a boat like this, but frankly, this is kind of a, I use it like a multi-species boat, but around here, there's so many rivers to fish, and the rivers are really, really fertile, and there's lots of interesting species to fish. I kind of like the idea of having a live scope for sharpshoot fishing and stuff like that, whenever I'm vertical jigging for walleye, but the shallow running boat so I can take it out and abuse it. Now, one of the biggest things this boat needed right out of the gates was some upgrades to the trailer. It didn't come with a spare tire, so I bought this spare tire mount. It's fairly affordable and works reasonably well, but frankly, I don't like it. It blocks my backup camera, and it makes it a little harder to judge the trailer, so I think this here tire is just gonna get bolted to the frame probably there. One of the other things that this boat desperately needed was this keel roller. I bought that Keel Roller. Let me see if I can come around and give you a little better look. I bought that Keel Roller from a local marina, built the bracket myself, with 1/4-inch plate, and bolted it directly to the frame. You can see, and maybe I'll roll in some pictures, where the frame is actually scuffed and damaged from this boat hitting it when I was launching it in steeper ramps. So I couldn't have that. I didn't want to destroy the bottom of my boat just launching it. So I finally took the time and built this Keel Roller. It's probably over-engineered, but it'll do the trick, and it's worked really, really well. Speaking of making the boat easier to launch, one issue that I consistently had, especially in current, was not having some guide-ons. So, using some 2x4 and scrap steel that I had around the shop, built these guide-ons, bolted them to the frame. The plate's there, 10 gauge, the tube is 10 gauge, I think it's 1.5 by 2 inch, and a little bit of angle iron. I made the bunks myself, welded them up, bolted them to the frame, and man, this thing is such a breeze to launch in even heavy current now and retrieve. So that was a tremendous improvement. If you're planning on fishing the river or any kind of current, buy guide-ons. Buy them with the boat. If the trailer doesn't come with them, buy them or build them. I advise building them because they're pretty easy to build and pretty expensive to buy. So, you know, giant upgrade. The other thing that I had to upgrade right off the bat, speaking of the trailer, is I added a transom saver. Just kind of makes sense. Gives you a little bit more security. I mean, it saves your transom. That's the point. It's a cheap upgrade. Buy it with your boat whenever you get a new boat. Other than that, the motor is stock. It's been through 1 season. I did add, there's one thing that I did add, if we can get this cowl off. The one modification that I made to the motor, if you want to call it a modification, is I did add an hour clicker on there. So this thing's only run about 10 hours since the last oil change that I did. So this way I actually know how many hours this thing has run, and I can actually keep track of the service intervals. This thing was painfully easy to install, just a couple of zip ties, and the wire just runs and loops around one of the spark plugs. These spark plug wires you see there, and that makes her kind of good to go, and it just keeps track of the number of hours this thing has run. It's always on, it runs on batteries, helps me keep track, and that way I can actually keep with the service intervals and keep this thing running for as long as humanly possible, because I bought it brand new. I'm gonna have it for a while. So, as far as other projects, I briefly mentioned maybe someday getting Garmin Live Scope, maybe. But the biggest modification has to do with this business here. The one thing I've learned from using this boat, it's a small boat. It's a 1648 Mod V John boat. Every bit of real estate on this boat is essential, and you have to use it very carefully. You have to plan very wisely where things go. And I genuinely have felt, since I've had this boat, that console has done more harm than good. It gets in the way of casting. There we go. Wait, nope, she's not on there. It gets in the way of casting sometimes, and especially as my fine wife likes to point out, I am a very excitable caster, so I tend to hit that console every now and again. So one thing that I do want to do with this boat as time goes on is to do a tiller conversion. The Mercury makes a 50 horse big tiller kit for this boat. It seems fairly easy to install. It would allow me to remove the entire console, move the electronics onto the T-tracks over there. I would have to figure out what to do with this rod rack, but that's really not the end of the world if you ask me. I'd lose this little bit of storage, but I bet I could consolidate a lot of that into the toolbox and into the front storage well. I could definitely deal with the loss of that drink holder and add a drink holder somewhere else, and then I would gain what doesn't seem like a lot of real estate, but when you're on the boat, especially with more than 2 people, it's a lot more real estate than you would think. And then it would all be open, and it'd be a lot more serviceable. I really thought I wanted the tiller out the gate. I kind of feel like I was talked out of it. And now I'm kind of getting a little buyer's remorse. But for about $1,000, I could fix it. All I would need is basically a piece of aluminum plate that I could rivet to the floor over there and seal up just to conceal the ports for that live well. I'd have to plug the live well ports over there, right in this general vicinity where they pipe in. Probably pipe in or plug up the live well filler port on the bottom there. I don't think it would really be too bad. I could definitely do the work myself. have to figure out what I'm going to do with the electronics and stuff like that, but I don't think it'll be too bad. But right now, that's not financially feasible. We're going to give it, it's winter now. The boat's basically getting decommissioned. I'm going to give it another week or two and then completely winterize it and basically put her away for the season, wrap her up and store her. But, might give her one more season, see how she works now with the new electronics and the bigger casting deck. That bigger casting deck has been tremendous. And, see how she goes. So we'll see. But, anyway, just wanted to walk you through some of the modifications that we've done this year. This is the first season I've had this boat. And I've enjoyed it immensely. I love it. I've had a great time with it so far. And I think there's many more seasons of use in this boat. Especially while I live out here in the Midwest, I can't conceive of a reason to get another boat, except maybe a bigger river boat. But right now, I'm pretty happy with this boat. So anyway, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, go ahead and holler at me down in the comments. There'll be more videos getting rolled in as I do modifications to the boat and new changes. And anyway, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next video.